Hey, you're watching Dang Plays, and I'm bringing you another Animal Crossing tutorial. This time I'll be showing you how to make a rock garden. Let me go ahead and just speed things up in the background while I tear down the space I'm going to be using. I'm going to be actually showing you how to make a non-traditional rock garden, one that isn't just a boring rectangle. This is going to be very anti-rectangle propaganda. I don't think the rectangular rock gardens are the best way to organize your rocks. I understand that they don't use that much space, but they aren't optimized. When you're hitting a rock with a shovel, as you guys probably know, you want to have those corners so that way you don't slide out of the way every time you hit the rock with your shovel. And so when you have that rectangular rock garden and one of those rocks in the middle ends up being the one that gives you bells, usually you sometimes slide out of the way and you miss that last one that gives you the most money. And so instead of costing yourself 8,000 bells, you can build your rock garden differently to make sure that, all the stone, clay, and iron or bells that pop out, you can make sure you actually get 8 from each rock instead of accidentally missing a few here and there. So the most important thing to talk about is how to actually make your rock garden. As you may have figured out by yourself, if you eat a fruit or a mushroom or whatever, if you hit a rock, it will actually cause the rock to break. What the game does is it then randomly picks a spot somewhere on the island to respawn the rock, so that way you can always have up to 6 rocks somewhere on your island. So if you're going to start the process of building your own rock garden, you have to first make sure that the rocks can't spawn anywhere else on the island. First, the game will look for any empty spots where you don't have anything, and then it will check the 8 squares around it to make sure that there's nothing there that blocks your character from walking into those spots. That means things like bushes, trees, cliffs all get in the way, but things like flowers and weeds do not. It's also super important to note that tall objects will block rocks from spawning as well. So this means trees, buildings, cliffs, even items like stone arches or pagodas. Even if there's like a 3x3 spot behind it that a rock normally could spawn on, it still will not spawn in that spot. And finally, let's talk about setup. The way you get this rock garden to work is you pretty much make it so the rocks can only show up in 6 spots on the island, and that's in your own rock garden. This means blocking off every other eligible spot with something like an item, a custom design path, literally anything that would prevent a rock from spawning. That means your island's gonna look something like this for a few days, unless you use time travel, which I'll be using so that way I don't have to wait 6 whole days. But alright, let's go ahead and slow down this video and start the planning process. I use different paths to show where I want items to go, so I'm going to use a stone path to show where the rocks will show up, and then I'm going to go ahead and use dirt paths to show where I'm going to make my corners. So the easiest thing to do first is find where you want to place your first rocks. Here I use a natural corner like my built-in cliff to place my first ones, and from there I just have to make sure that wherever I want my other rocks, that there's a full surrounding 8 squares that are not going to be obstructed. It's fine if it overlaps with other rocks, that's not going to block them from spawning. You just need to make sure that the immediate surrounding areas are clear. Now that I've made my 6 spots, I'm going to use the dirt path to show where I want to create those corners I mentioned. These corners can be made out of anything, whether it's like a bush, a tree, an item. Anything that your character can't walk through will work. As you can see here, the 3 spots that I've blocked up with the path will create 2 natural corners for these 2 rocks, which will make it so that, when I'm hitting them with the shovel, I'll stay in place and be able to maximize everything I get from that rock. Once I'm done planning, I'm going to go ahead and start decorating the area with whatever decorations I have in my inventory. Like I mentioned before, you need to make sure all eligible spots are blocked off. So I'm going to be putting down bushes, flowers, trees, whatever I want, so that way the rocks will not show up there. As I mentioned before, trees do stop rocks from spawning, so I've put them here just so I know how my layout's going to be, but I will remove them later to make sure that they don't block the rocks from showing up. And then I'm going to block off all the empty spaces around the rocks using a hard path, in this case a wooden deck, to make sure that the rocks only show up in the 6 spots I want. Finally, once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and erase the stone paths and replace them with grass, so that way they don't block rocks from showing up. As you can see on the screen, I'm now time hopping just so that way I can jump to the next day and force a rock to show up, because I've already destroyed them everywhere else on my island. It's super important to check your garden each day to make sure things like fossils haven't showed up in the spots you've saved for your rocks. These will stop your rocks from spawning, so you have to make sure you clear them out every single day. Anyway, I have to time travel 5 more times to make sure the rest of my rocks do show up since it's only 1 per day, so I'm going to skip all that and go straight to the final product. I've finally gotten all 6 rocks to show up here, but I gotta do a little bit of cleanup. As you can see, I've put down a custom design path where my trees are gonna be because I didn't want those trees to stop the rocks from showing up. I'm also gonna have to clear out all these wooden paths, and I'm actually going to replace them with custom design paths. The reason I'm doing that is because I don't want fossils and weeds to show up next to my rocks, because those will be annoying to clear every single time I'm trying to just hit the rock with my shovel. I'm going to be using my own rock paths that I've made, but you're welcome to get creative. You can use literally anything, whether it's a stone path, an arch tile path, a terracotta path, or anything, as long as it doesn't block items from being able to be dropped on that spot. If you like my stone path and want it on your own island, I did upload it to the Able Sister shop, so feel free to use the code on the screen and download it yourself. Now to do a quick demo, here you can see I have a hard corner at every single rock I have, so if I wanted to get any items from it, I can easily do so without having to do any type of setup. Pardon me while I pinch my bells and get all 16,000 from this rock. But that's the end of my tutorial. Thanks for watching, I hope you're able to learn something, and I hope I was able to convince you to not make a rectangular rock garden. I took a little bit of a break from making videos recently, but I'm back and I'm ready to make more, so if you liked what you saw, please feel free to hit that subscribe button.